Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Cohesity in the Solution Spotlight, a unique online event for industry professionals.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to the Solution Spotlight featuring Cohesity and focused on how to protect against cyber risks and outages with Cohesity and AWS. Every day we see the numbers growing. Over 90% of businesses believe the threat of ransomware has increased in the past year, and nearly 3 out of 4 companies say they will pay a ransom to recover data and restore business processes. The good news is that there has never been a stronger set of enterprise-grade solutions available to you that simplify and accelerate backup and recovery of workloads across on-prem and the cloud. So today, you'll get to see a live demo of one of the best, Cohesity Data Protect, a comprehensive backup and recovery solution to protect cloud-native, SaaS, and on-prem data at scale. And we have with us a cloud security expert with 15 years of experience in cybersecurity to walk you through this event. So let me bring in Shelley Calhoun-Jones, Principal Technologist at Cohesity. Shelley, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Doug. I'm real excited to be here.
Well, I think you're a fascinating person to have. I've been on your LinkedIn. You've got an amazing background. Before we get going, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your journey. I know you've been at Cohesity for you're a relatively new folk there, but tell us a little bit more about kind of how you've arrived there. It's a great journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my background was initially in cybersecurity. I worked for Symantec for about 14 years. First as a technical account manager, working with large companies as their subject matter expert for all things related to security. If one of my customers was dealing with an outbreak, I would be the first person they would call to help triage the situation. So it was a real fast-paced role, and it really allowed me to get a better understanding of how security works in a variety of different environments. Over the last several years, I worked at Amazon. In particular, during the kind of the COVID era, I was a technical trainer, and that was a really fun role that allowed me to learn more about cloud. So I've been here for about a year, and I love this role because it gives me the ability to interact with our customers and really kind of understand what their pain points are, and also just make sure that we're providing value. So it's a great job.
Well, great. Well, I'm gonna turn it over to you, but before I do that, I'm gonna just set everybody's expectations around if you have any questions for Shelley that you'd love to ask, by all means, send them in. We'll field them here. I'll save them for the end. When I come back in, we'll do a Q&A with Shelley and answer any questions that you have. But without getting in the way any further, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Shelley. As I said before, I think this is a really important solution to be talking about at this particular moment in time. It's a wild space out there, and protection and recovery has never been more relevant. So I'm looking forward to watching the presentation myself. Thanks.
Sounds great. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into the material. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about how data resilience comes into play within the enterprise landscape. We're going to talk about some of the different challenges that a lot of organizations are running into with data resilience, and some different ways that you can modernize your data resilience using Cohesity Data Cloud. Also call out some industry level best practices when it comes to data resilience, and then we'll also do a walkthrough of our architecture. We'll take a look at an example of a traditional architecture and how this plays out in the multi-cloud world. And then I have a really fun demonstration planned at the end of this session where we'll actually go into a deployment. We'll take a look at an example of a protection group where we have replication. We also have a redundancy by feeding our archives into an S3 bucket. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll take a look at that here in just a bit. But let's go ahead and just set some key terms and definitions when it comes to resilience, because as we all know, hardship builds resilience. We see this in the news every single day. I know that when the pandemic happened for me, it really changed my job a lot because, pre-pandemic, I was traveling a lot. And once we entered the pandemic world, organizations had to adjust and adapt to working virtually. Not only that, but going in and adjusting your supply chains to make sure that you're able to, keep the business online. So this is a great example of business resilience, and a lot of companies are looking for ways to respond and adapt quickly to potential disruptions, whether this be a virus outbreak or maybe we're just dealing with an outage in one of our data centers. Now, from a cyber resilience perspective, this is the idea behind that is to respond and recover quickly from a cyber attack. We see it in the news. Threat actors are becoming ever more aggressive in their techniques, and so we want to make sure that we have the ability to respond quickly and keep the business online. Now, from a data resilience perspective, the idea is that we want to make sure that we have the ability to continue our business operations and also have the ability to quickly recover. And this is what we're going to focus on. And in the data resilience world, we know that it's getting ever harder to accommodate for changing environments, because for a lot of us, we're still supporting legacy workloads. I remember when I was a technical trainer at Amazon, a lot of my students were in the middle of their multi-cloud migration journey. And a lot of times they're working with different tools and solutions depending on the part of the environment that they're working in. Even when I worked in security, this was an ongoing thing where I would work with contacts that may have to manage, 5 or 6 different security solutions, and that slows down. That adds complexity. So we want to look for ways to make sure that we're meeting our SLAs. We also are looking for ways to make sure that we're minimizing our downtime and revenue loss. And to do this, we can use the concepts of recovery point and recovery time objective, which if you've worked in the backup and recovery world for a while, you're probably familiar with this. But the idea is that, we want to ask ourselves, well, how often does our data need to be backed up? And how long can our workload be unavailable? Now, every workload is different, especially if you're working with a multi-tier workload where maybe you're hosting a popular streaming service and you have customers all around the world. Maybe you're using a content delivery network to make sure that you're streaming this media to them quickly. Maybe your website has a database layer and an application layer. So you have all of these different layers that you're managing, and you want to make sure that that workload is always online and always available. Well, the stats are going to be different. But in this example, we can see that we have the ability to recover at most 12 hours of data, and we know that the workload can be unavailable for a maximum of an hour. So it's all about making sure that we're meeting our SLAs and also making sure that we have the ability to come back online quickly. Well, if we look at the numbers, in the industry, 95% say that it could take over 24 hours to get back online. Some say that it could take over 4 days to come back online, or even over a week. Now, ideally, we want to come back online as quickly as possible, but it just really determines how mature our business continuity is, and also how mature our backup and restore recovery platform is, from a administrative perspective. And so to kind of take a look at this, we're gonna dive into Cohesity Data Cloud, which does give us the ability to recover at scale. And in fact, it gives you the ability to centralize your recovery operations so that you're recovering from a single platform. I remember working with customers where they may have accounts across different cloud providers. They may have hundreds upon hundreds of different cloud accounts that they're managing. And so they're looking for a way to centralize that and make it much easier to come back online using a centralized UI. And so that's what Cohesity gives you. It gives you the ability to recover on-prem workloads, cloud-based workloads. If you're working remotely from home, it gives you the ability to use a centralized, highly secure platform to do that. And so just to kind of show you how this would work, the heart of our solution is backup and recovery, but we also do have the ability to integrate from a security perspective, because we're going to be scanning the snapshots that you're taking. We're going to be scanning those snapshots for any potential threats. We also have the ability to do what's called a data classification scan using our Cohesity Data Hawk service. And it also gives you the ability to do other things like cyber vaulting, which, depending on the industry that you're in, you may be required to keep your archival data within a separate platform. So it does give you that integration. Also gives you the ability to perform disaster recovery. And also we have the ability to support agile or test environments. Not going to spend too long on this slide, but I did want to call out that we do meet a number of different use cases. Of course, backup recovery, we've talked a little bit about that, but we also do offer ransomware protection. This gives you the ability to leverage things like immutable snapshots, which this is a common attack vector for bad actors. They will try to encrypt your backup data. So it basically means that your data gets mounted in read-only mode to make sure that your backup data doesn't get modified. We also meet a lot of data security and compliance goals. We offer long-term retention and archival, which we'll take a look at using our cloud archive service. And then we also offer disaster recovery and business continuity goals. We meet a lot of those goals from an RPO perspective. We support a variety of different workloads. You can see that we support all major virtual providers like VMware, Microsoft Hyper-V. We also support physical and cloud-based workloads. And if you want to learn more, you can go out to cohesity.com. We have a full support matrix, which will give you a list on the workloads that we support. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into a quick walkthrough of our architecture, and then I'm going to jump over to our test environment. But just to kind of show you the architecture both before and after, you can see right now we're looking at an example of a legacy environment. So let's imagine that we work for a company, and this company just recently went through an acquisition. And so we have the joy of not only managing our own regular environment, but we're also bringing in a new environment, which means that we could be dealing with multiple vendors, multiple interfaces. We could have our staff spread across different projects. We could be dealing with siloed data, which can make it challenging from a recovery perspective. Now, in this example, you can see that we also are working within the cloud. We could be working with AWS or a different cloud provider. We could also have our employees spread across different offices. And so the idea is that we want to consolidate that information. And so what we get when we incorporate a service like Data Protect is that we have the ability to have our Data Protect cluster either deployed to an on-prem data center. We could also be using Cohesity Cloud Edition, or we have Cohesity Data Protect Backup as a Service. But the idea is that we're going to be managing all of these workloads underneath the same umbrella. And we're going to have the ability to access our Data Protect instance using a service like Helios. We can connect into it from any major web browser, and we have the ability to manage these different workloads and even send a copy of our backup data using Cloud Archive. We could send it up to an external S3 bucket. And so the idea is that by using that centralized UI, it improves our time to resolution and also gives us the ability to get some additional cost savings. Kind of like what I mentioned on the earlier slide, we do have the ability to either manage our own Cohesity clusters. So if you want to manage your own on-prem appliance, we do have the ability to deploy Data Protect into either your own hardware. You can also use maybe like a different server if you want to deploy it that way. It also does allow to be maybe managed by a third-party service provider. I know for a lot of companies out there, you may have a different team that's managing your environment, in particular, like with these clusters. And then also we offer Data Protect as a service. And so this gives you the ability to store your data either in AWS or Azure, and we offer a free trial for that. All right, so just to quickly summarize here, I think we've pretty much touched on all these key areas. We talked about Cloud Archive. Ooh, yes, so global deduplication. This is another thing that you get with Cohesity Data Protect. This allows you to, this allows us to scan your archives for any duplicates. We'll actually do deduplication operations when we're creating those backups and sending them to our clusters. So this basically just allows you to get some additional cost savings. And I'll actually link out some documents. I'll send it over to you guys just so you have it. We have some additional resources that we'll also include at the end of this session. And so this is just emphasizing the fact that you have the ability to back up your data using our native format, or you can also use built-in backup tools in services like AWS. So we give you a lot of flexibility depending on how your environment is set up. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into a demonstration. I want to take you into Cohesity Data Cloud. We're going to identify some resources which are linked over to our AWS account. We're going to take a look at how you can actually identify resources within the console. We'll also go into the AWS Management Console. We'll take a look around at some of the requirements that are needed for Cohesity Cloud Archive, because this is a really cool service which complements Cohesity Data Protect, in which it allows you to also save your archives to an external service like Amazon S3. So we'll take a look at that, and then we'll also review a protection group and a policy within Helios. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to that screen. Bear with me here for just a moment. All right, so right now I'm within the Cohesity dashboard. Now, before we jump into the demo, I just want to call out a couple areas on the screen. First of which is that you have the ability to access all of our different services within this UI. So if I click on this happy little Rubik's Cube up here at the top, you can see that I have the ability to connect into some of our other services like Cohesity Fort Knox, which is our cyber vaulting as a service. We also have Data Protect delivered as a service on my tenant. So you can see that I have the ability to either use our on-prem cluster manager, or I can also use Data Protect, which is just backup as a service. So this would give me the ability to offload some of those responsibilities to my cloud provider versus also managing another server. But for this demonstration, we're going to focus on the cluster manager because it does offer some really awesome features if you're working with different sites. And so what I want to start out with is just showing you the dashboard here. This gives you a quick pulse check on your Cohesity cluster. It shows you the total amount of storage that's being used. It also gives you an overview of your the health of your environment, and also other things like whether or not you're meeting your SLAs. And so you can see that we have some different widgets here. I can also switch in between different views if I want to focus on a particular part of my environment, like maybe my database servers that I'm backing up. I can drill down and look at specific type of workloads. Now, before we jump into data protection, I did also want to show you that within the cluster manager, we have the ability to take a look at remote clusters. And so, one of the topics within this presentation was talking about, how can we achieve cyber resilience? For a lot of companies out there, you may have a secondary site that you use for also managing things like business continuity. Maybe you have a DR location. And so in this example, we have a remote cluster that my cluster is replicating to give my environment additional redundancy. I can also go into this infrastructure view, and I can even choose to replicate my data to a completely different target. And so in this example, I have two different external targets. I have my Azure target, which if I had snapshots that I wanted to host within Azure, I could replicate it over to their service, or I can replicate it over to Amazon S3, which is what we're going to focus on. And so in this example, I am not only backing up my data to my local cluster, I am replicating my data to a secondary remote cluster, and I'm also sending my data up to AWS. And so if I just click on this edit option here, you can see that I've already selected my region on the West Coast. So my data is going to Northern California because I want that data to be as close to me as possible. And you can also see that we're replicating to a bucket here. So I'm actually replicating over to my COH01 archive. You can see that we have my security credentials are all set up here, and I'm replicating incremental backups with periodic fulls. So this kind of just shows you how that looks on the Cohesity side. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip over to S3. And so within S3, you can see that I'm already logged in here, and I have all my buckets listed. And you can see that if I open up my S3 bucket, we're replicating over those snapshots and also other things like backup metadata. So all of this is set up within S3. I also have my credentials over here in IAM. So I have a user set up for Cloud Archive. So we're pretty much all good to go here. I've already set up my clusters, and we have replication and Cloud Archive, and all of those components already set up. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize here again, just so we can focus on this part of the environment. If I go into data protection and just click on protection, you can see that this is going to give me a list of what's called a protection group. And these protection groups represent different types of workloads that I'm backing up. They can also represent, maybe a particular policy that we're testing out. And so in this example, if I just go down the list here really quick, go down to Cloud Archive VMs with replication. This is a test group that I've set up. And this test group is basically testing out the replication piece and also Cloud Archive. And so I've actually been creating some backups for a while within this protection group. And in this protection group, we have what's called a policy, which is going to describe the how, when, and where of when my backups are occurring. So if I just go into this policy, just to show you here really quick, you can see that in this example, we're not only backing up our data every day and retaining it for up to 2 weeks, but we're also replicating over to that remote cluster. So we could be replicating to a cluster within a completely different data center, maybe in a different part of the country that we have the ability to fail over to if my primary data center is not online. We're also archiving into the cloud. So you can see that in this example, we're archiving to AWS once a day, and we're retaining that data for up to 2 weeks. So this is just giving you an example of how you can not only make sure that you're running those backups regularly, but you also have the ability to extend out your footprint so that if for any reason you're not able to access this particular cluster, you can still retrieve your data from the remote cluster. So let me go ahead and cancel out of this here. And if we go back to our protection group, you can see that within this example, it's showing us that the backups are occurring. It's also showing that our SLA was met. We can see that we're archiving successfully to our local cluster. We're also succeeding in our replication to our DR cluster. And we're also archiving successfully to AWS. If I want to learn more information, I can go in here and I can get more details on the run. I can also see that it'll give me a quick snippet of how it did with the cluster replication and also sending it out to Amazon. It'll actually show you the total amount of data that's transferred. So it gets very granular on the information that it gathers when it's running that protection run. You can also see a full audit trail of any changes that have happened to this particular protection group. So you can see that I've made some changes. We've also had some changes that have been made by other members of my team. I get that snapshot of my policy settings, and we can also get other information like data consumption. So we're good there. Now, if I wanted to go in and perform a quick recovery here, let me just tab over to a different screen. So if I just go in here and I want to perform a quick recovery, I can just click on, I can either go into recoveries, but my system's being a little futzy right now. So we're going to go in and we're going to just do a recovery from here. And you're going to see that I have the ability to recover a variety of different types of workloads. I can also recover at the file or folder level. But if I just click on virtual machines here and I go over to VMs, this is going to take me into a wizard. And what I can do is I can either search for maybe like a partial name. I can also filter based off of the protection group. So if I just go over to, there's my protection group. All right, so if I just click on Cloud Archive VMs here, I could also maybe add an additional flag here. I can just maybe search based off of asterisks, and this will show me all of the servers which reside within my protection group. And so if I wanted to, I could select one of these individual servers, or I could just choose to recover the entire workload. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to click on Edit over here, and we're going to change where this is recovering from. So this is going to, instead of recovering from my local cluster, we're going to recover directly from AWS. And so you can see in this example, we have a couple different test servers that I'm working with. And if I just click on Select Recovery Point and go to Recovery Options, I have the ability to not only recover to the original location, but if I want to test this out, I could choose to recover to a new location. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and recover to my DRV center. So I'm just going to go ahead and select a couple different options here. And then we'll select our VM folder, and then they'll give you the ability to either do an instant recovery, which means that these VMs will be available immediately after they get moved to the storage target, or I could do a slower type of recovery, which means that they will only be available once all the data is copied over to the storage target. Since this is a test, I'm going to go ahead and select instant recovery. And so we'll go ahead and just add a prefix here. And then I can also give this recovery task a name. And we'll just call this Shelly Test Recovery. And then we can just click on Recover. And so that's going to start the recovery process. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and tab back over here because there was a couple more slides I just wanted to quickly go through before we get to the Q&A. The first being is that if you go out to our website, we have a lot of case studies out there. And so this is one of the case studies that we have for Data Protect. This company, Beckman Coulter, they were running into some challenges with their backup and recovery operations. They were using a variety of different backup solutions, which made it difficult to monitor their backups from a centralized perspective. And so this just gives you some explanations on why they chose Cohesity. Not just from a security perspective, but also giving them the ability to, do things like automated cloud archive. And you can find more of these type of case studies out on cohesity.com. And if you want to get started, we do offer a free trial that you can go out and check out, cohesity.com/AWS free trial. And you can also go out to cohesity.com/AWS. But I'm going to go ahead and pause here for just a moment and see if you guys have any questions.
All right, outstanding. Well, while the questions are coming in, I have a couple. My first question, actually, and I want to tap your thought leader, kind of prior to Cohesity experience. What are some of the things that companies should be aware of, or maybe aren't, what you see they aren't quite aware of as they think about their cyber resilience posture? I mean, where are the sneaky kind of vulnerabilities, if you will?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think a lot of challenges that companies are running into is just literally not knowing the sheer amount of data they have within their environment. So the better you understand your data, the better that you can tighten down your security policies. I know that for a lot of my customers that I worked with, they would sometimes connect into a server. Let's say we're triaging an active security event. We might connect into a server where we really aren't sure what the role of the server is and the type of data that's hosting, which can be a bit of a challenge if you're dealing with an infection. You want to know whether or not the server is, mission critical, or if it's a test server and we have a little bit more flexibility on what we can do with it. So there's the server aspect, but there's also the data itself. And if we don't understand the data that we're backing up, we're not able to make critical decisions, like maybe we need to lock down the server a little bit more, or does this data even need to reside here? And when I say data, it could be PII data, it could be other sensitive information. So just making sure that you have the correct security in place, depending on the workload that you're working with.
Yeah, so with regard to that, obviously everybody's situation is different, and Cohesity can handle a wide swath of different types of organizations. But I'm curious if you can give folks a sense of kind of how it goes as people engage. And we're always here at Solutions Review always encouraging people to reach out and engage, and ultimately, use these types of events as a gateway drug to an engagement, because ultimately your situations are unique, and we understand that the questions that you're going to have as you start to explore solutions are going to be very specific to your use cases. So I'm curious how that process works with Cohesity as folks do begin the engagement process.
Yeah, so working with your account team, let's imagine that we're a current Cohesity customer. Working with your account team, they can assist with doing maybe like a proof of concept within your environment, just to make sure that the solution is working as expected. From my understanding, they also do periodic health checks, and they'll connect you with our pro services team to aid in the implementation, depending on the type of deployment that you're doing. So we do have a lot of resources that will help support you when you're starting out your journey. But just from a general industry perspective, a lot of times when customers start working with maybe like a new backup and recovery solution, there comes the need to go in and document the teams that you're going to be working with, how that process is going to work. And I know that when I worked at Amazon, what we encouraged a lot of our students to do, or customers, would be to do what's called a game day exercise. So literally go through your business continuity plan and make sure that you have at least at a minimum backup and recovery in place, if not maybe incorporating other elements like automation into getting your business operations back online. So there are a lot of other tools out there, depending on the cloud provider that you're working with. If you're working with AWS, they have a lot of great resources out on their website, which can also help from a business continuity perspective. But also, if you're working directly within Cohesity, we have a lot of documentation online, and we have teams on standby that can also help you with your backup and recovery goals.
Yeah, and I wanted to actually just talk about that a bit before we get to some of the questions, and that is all the resources that are available. So you mentioned a couple that you highlighted there, but there is a whole host of resources, and actually a free trial offer as well, free 30-day trial offer. So there's a lot of ways to learn more on the Cohesity site, and again, we would encourage folks to go to cohesity.com and check all that out. But there's also ways to begin to dip a toe in by getting a free trial and then walking down the path of maybe a proof of concept. So yeah, there's many ways to begin the consideration cycle, and I guess that leads to another question, right? I mean, everybody has something, right? And I'm sure you've seen this in your experience. Everybody has something, and it is protecting something to a certain degree. But given the numbers that we mentioned at the beginning of this event, with 3 out of 4 companies basically throwing their hands up and saying they're willing to pay on ransomware attacks. I'm curious how companies should think about trying to get to that next level. I mean, if they have something, how would they know, and how would they maybe even create a consensus internally around whether or not this is something that they should be considering going to the next level with?
Well, for a lot of companies, their backup and operations, or I guess infrastructure team, and their security operations teams may actually be in completely different parts of the company. So they may actually work with completely different tools. And so I know that for a lot of the customers that I've worked with, they've been trying to look for ways to have like API integrations like into their security solutions, or maybe even like an API integration into their backup and recovery platform. So that way, both teams are getting the same type of intelligence on their end, in addition to whatever internal processes that they may have in place. Like, I know that for some customers, they may have like a notification that goes out to a Slack channel when you're dealing with a new security event, just to give people a heads up of what to expect on their day. So a lot of the need has been around getting that security intelligence maybe in between different platforms. And so what we have done here at Cohesity is we have actually set up what's called a data security alliance with a lot of different vendors like Tenable, Mandiant, CrowdStrike, Cisco. We have integrations into a lot of popular different SOAR platforms. And so the idea is that if you are dealing with a security event, if you do need to do a quick recovery of a critical workload, you can do that, but you can also integrate into these other response mechanisms, because you may need to do some additional investigation before you clean up the threat. You want to understand how this threat is traveling through your environment and get a better understanding of how this threat works in case you need to do additional triage with your security team. So there's a lot of different options out there. But beyond Cohesity, I think for a lot of the companies that I've worked with, they're looking for ways to either use their own custom integrations, interacting with our APIs or maybe a different vendor's APIs, or maybe looking for something that already has that integration built out. So we have a lot of different options that you can access via the Cohesity marketplace, or you can just go out to our documentation to learn more.
So I will get to some questions that we've received. So one of them is with regard to backup policies. Can you create, and I'm hoping I'm reading this right, can you create new backup policies or with some customization?
Yes, absolutely.
How does the backup policy creation process work?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm still sharing out my screen or not, but I can just give you a quick rundown on what a backup policy is. So we call our backup policies protection policies. And when we were in the console earlier, we were looking at a protection group, which was using one of these policies. You can either use our pre-built predefined policies, or you can actually create your own. You can also customize our pre-built policies depending on what your use case is. But you can create as many of these policies as you need, depending on the type of environment that you're supporting or working in.
Well, and I guess that's the larger point, right? That everybody has their own requirements, and so ultimately working with a flexible solution can give you that custom approach to all the things that matter in your particular instance, and those can vary from any number of reasons depending upon industry and regulation requirements, etc., global footprint. Another question with regard to retention duration limits. Is there a retention duration limit? For example, can I restore a backup item from a backup from several years ago?
Oh, no, of course. Yeah, that's a common thing. I mean, I've worked with companies where they have to keep their archives for up to 25 years. It could be really old tape backups. Who knows? Yeah, no, you do have the ability to set up different retention limits. Let me actually see if I can grab a quick document here. You can go in here. You can set the retention settings for years. Like if we wanted to, we could set it up to 25 years. So it's anywhere from days to years. And let's see here. You can also set the retention for replication. And then we also have some other options here, but I think that answers your question. Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you being able to show it live.
Yeah,
it's good
no,
stuff.
Totally.
So another question we got with regard to what are the geographic regions that you support for backup as a service?
So we support Canada, the US, Australia, and we support a couple different places in Europe. But we have all the regions that we support on our website if you want to go out and learn more about Cohesity Backups as a Service.
Okay. Well, and with regard to the website, I will also point out, and again, this is one of the fun parts of being at Solutions Review and being able to talk to solution providers, is we get some of the best. And truth of the matter is, I don't want to sound like a straight up hype man, but you guys, it's not me, it's Gartner, basically naming you as a leader in the Magic Quadrant for enterprise backup. So, these are the kinds of events we love to do, where we get to bring effectively the best available solutions to you on your screen, so you can get to see them, and you get somebody like Shelley who really knows her way around the technology to be able to walk you through it, at least for a little while. Is there anything, Shelley, that you'd like to highlight over and above what you've already shown? I mean, what can we provide as a little bit of parting advice to our audience as we wrap things up here?
I would just say there's a lot of free resources that are available within the community if you want to learn more about topics like security. I know CISA.gov, they offer training via their website, which will get you up to speed on key security topics. Also, a lot of local user groups like Security B-Sides. There's a lot of free resources out there and ways that you can get more connected with the greater community. I think for security in general, it's kind of a team sport. It's one of those things that you'll be perpetually learning more about, and I think it's a fun topic, and I think it's also really important right now, even within the backup and recovery space. So just staying educated, and also Amazon Web Services offers a lot of free resources as well. If you do want to learn more about things like game day exercises, they have documentation, they have free online workshops that you can attend that can also get you educated on topics like cloud.
Yeah, and obviously go to solutionsreview.com and check out all that we're doing with regard to covering this space overall, in addition to checking out everything that Cohesity has. It's, as you said, it's now a contact sport. There's never been a more amazing time to be alive in technology. However, it comes with a whole host of risks as well. So all the great things that you can now do with your data and all the things that are coming with regard to AI and all the technology that will enable. It still is a place where you need to remain safe and you need to put in the right protections and reduce your vulnerability. And so solutions like Cohesity is certainly something that you want to be aware of and consider as you're scaling out that cyber resilience. Shelley, thanks very much for the time today. This was great. We love events like this where we get to see the top solutions. So it was a pleasure with your presentation. Very well done. And best of luck in the new year.
Likewise. No, thank you for having me.
You bet. Well, there you have it. Another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Shelley and Cohesity for that fine presentation, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.